Hello, this is News Pulse on UATV. I am Henry Keane. As usual, thank you for joining. Welcome to the show. Today in the episode, White House secretly consults Russia on new plan to end the war. United States approves Patriot package sale to Ukraine. ATACMS missiles are hitting new sites in Russia. Russia forcibly mobilizing Ukrainians on the occupied territories while Russian bombs end up falling on the heads of Russian civilians. United States President Donald Trump has sent a top-level Pentagon delegation to Kyiv for negotiations on November 19th, part of what officials describe as administration's latest attempt to revive talks on ending the war in Ukraine. The Wall Street Journal reports on that Army Secretary Dan Driscoll, accompanied by two generals, was set to meet with President Volodymyr Zelensky and other Ukrainian officials, as well as military and industry representatives. Driscoll also plans to hold talks with Russian officials later. White House officials told Wall Street Journal that Driscoll was chosen because Moscow might be more receptive to military-led mediation, especially after previous diplomatic efforts failed. The White House has been secretly coordinating with Moscow on a new United States plan to end the full-scale Russian-Ukrainian war, Axios reports, citing Russian and American officials. The 28-point proposal, inspired by a previous 20-point Gaza ceasefire deal, crafted by the Trump administration, covers four areas: peace in Ukraine, security guarantees, European security, and the future of United States relations with Russia and Ukraine. The plan is being drafted by Trump's special representative, Steve Witkoff, who discussed it in detail, with Vladimir Putin's envoy, Kirill Dmitriev. Kirill Dmitriev told Axios he spent 3 days in meetings with Witkoff and Trump's team during a visit to Miami in late October, adding that Moscow is more optimistic this time because it feels its position is truly being heard. The United States Department of State has approved the sale to Ukraine of equipment and services to support the Patriot air defense system for an estimated amount of $105 million. The State Department emphasizes that this sale will support U.S. foreign policy and security objectives by strengthening Ukraine's defense capabilities. To implement the contract, approximately 5 U.S. government representatives and 15 contractor personnel are expected to be deployed to the U.S. European Command for up to 1 month for training and working meetings. During his visit to Spain yesterday, the president of Ukraine held meetings with representatives of the country's defense industry. They presented the developments of their companies, including anti-drone systems. Ukraine is interested in purchasing not only American weapons, but also European ones. Therefore, the SAFE initiative to boost military production in the European Union was also discussed during the visit.
Ukraine is starting work on a project to supply, among other things, long-range target detection radars. Equipment that could seriously strengthen us. Spain's production is absolutely unique, and we plan to put all of it to use in a real war. We're ready for joint production of high-precision weapons, and I'm grateful for the new defense aid package. It includes air defense missiles as well, something we're in severe shortage of. Together with our partners, we're providing protection for our people and our communities, and ultimately for the entire European way of life.
Spain will provide Ukraine with an additional 615 million euros in military aid. Within this amount, 300 million euros are allocated for the implementation of the security agreement, under which Spain has committed to provide 1 billion euros annually in military support to Ukraine. In addition, 100 million euros will be provided through the NATO program for purchasing US-made weapons for Ukraine, and another 215 million euros will go towards acquiring anti-drone equipment, radars and other systems, including those produced by Spanish companies. President Volodymyr Zelensky specified that the aid package will include, amongst other things, air defense missiles, specifically 40 missiles for Iris-T systems. President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelensky has arrived in Turkey to discuss a fair peace for Ukraine. The key objectives of the visit are to bring Russia back to the negotiating table and to resume talks on prisoner exchanges. Zelensky will discuss Ukraine's peace conditions with President Erdogan, the Ukrainian leader said during a briefing with Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez. Reuters reports that United States Special Envoy Steve Witkoff will also travel to Istanbul. Meanwhile, the Kremlin has stated it does not plan to participate in the Istanbul talks, but will monitor the developments. Apparently, the Kremlin was busy unleashing yet another terror massive assault in Ukraine, raining missiles and drones on civilian areas, energy infrastructure, and critical facilities. As of now, we know about 25 people dead, maybe more, 3 children amongst them. The attack left widespread destruction, fires, and casualties across several western regions. In Ternopil, rescuers are desperately searching for people buried still under the rubble of a destroyed apartment building, with many feared dead. The brutality of the strike prompted Poland and allies to scramble fighter jets early Wednesday to defend Polish airspace after Russian aircraft targeted western Ukraine near the border. Quick reaction fighter pairs and early warning aircraft were deployed, while ground-based air defenses and radar system reached the highest alert level, the Polish Armed Forces Operational Command reports. Over the past 24 hours, 160 combat clashes were recorded on the front line, according to the Ukrainian General Staff. Fighting remains intense in Konstantinovka, Oleksandrivka, and Gulai-Pole, where Russian forces launch around 20 assaults every day. The hottest spot is the Pokrovsk direction, where Ukrainian defenders repel 50 enemy attacks. Russian forces are increasing pressure in the Gulai-Pole area, attempting to encircle it from the east and north. They are dropping dozens of bombs on communities in the past of Zaporozhye Oblast. Infiltrating groups are moving through the green advance, but Ukrainian forces detect and neutralize them, preventing enemy progress. Ukraine is also eliminating blocked Russian forces in Kupiansk. The occupiers have no access to supplies or reinforcements. The remaining Russian units in the city are left without proper support and face difficult conditions indeed, but Kupiansk remains an important logistical and defense hub. In Pokrovsk, small arms fighting is intensifying and Russian direct combat losses are increasing. Obviously, since the beginning of the month, Ukrainian defense forces have eliminated 314 enemy soldiers in Pokrovsk alone. Russian units have been spotted north of the city with plans to advance toward the village of Hrishino, northwest of Pokrovsk. The occupiers are unable to break through the city's defense and use it as a foothold of sorts, so they are attempting to bypass the city of Pokrovsk. At the same time, Russian forces continue unsuccessful attempts to breach the defense of Mirnograd, where Ukrainian troops eliminated a unit that belonged to the Russian main intelligence service. Russia has forcibly mobilized nearly 58,000 Ukrainians in the occupied territories, temporarily occupied territories. These figures were announced by the Coordination Headquarters for the Treatment of Prisoners of War. This data was collected by Ukrainian intelligence from February 2022 to July of this year. According to these headquarters, every 6th prisoner of war is a citizen of Ukraine. Therefore, the Verkhovna Rada is currently considering a draft law that would allow prisoners of war with Ukrainian passports to remain in Ukraine after the release and not to return to the occupied territories. Lobbyists and clergy associated with the Russian Orthodox Church, one of the staunchest supporters of the Kremlin dictator Vladimir Putin's war against Ukraine, are conducting an active campaign in Washington this week. They are meeting with representatives of the US presidential administration, including the Office of Faith-Based and Neighborhood Partnerships, and are also attempting to sway members of Congress. The delegation's goal is to draw as much attention as possible to the alleged religious persecution of Orthodox Christians by Kyiv. Concerns about the activities of the Russian Orthodox Church are not limited to the United States. In 2024, the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe adopted a resolution calling on member states to consider the Russian Orthodox Church as, we quote, effectively used as a tool of Russian influence and Kremlin propaganda, end of quote. Moreover, clergymen consecrate weapons that Russia used against Ukraine, and Patriarch Kirill personally has stated once that all sins of the Russian military will be forgiven. Over the past 11 days, Russian bombers have dropped a total of 8 bombs on the Belgorod region. In Russia, Ukraine's main intelligence directorate released an intercepted phone call in which a Russian woman describes to her friend the fires raging across infrastructure facilities caused by the Russian army bombing. Their own citizens Due to technical flaws in Russian munitions, some bombs fail to follow their intended course and end up falling on the heads of Russian civilians living in the border areas. The Russian Ministry of Defense also failed to intercept 4 long-range US-made ATACMS missiles. The General Staff of the Ukrainian Armed Forces had previously confirmed that Ukrainian troops use ATACMS to hit a military target in Voronezh in Russia for the first time since the war began. Let me remind you, though, the White House officially authorized the use of ATACMS by Ukrainian forces against Russia in late November 2024. Evidence suggests that none of the 4 missiles were intercepted. Observers reported 4 smoke trails in the sky near the target, consistent with the deployment of ATACMS cluster warheads. Russian media later released photos of the missile debris, empty rocket bodies without warheads and without the typical signs of air defense strikes. Experts note that this appearance is normal for ATACMS as the cluster warhead disperses over the target while the empty rocket body fails to the ground. This incident indicates the missile successfully reaches their target and deployed their submunitions as intended. Well, that seems to be it for today. I am Henry Keane. Thank you so very much. Thank you so very much for time and for your standing firmly with Ukraine. Please subscribe to our channel so to stay tuned to what is happening in the world, presented to you by us, UATV, and always in Ukrainian perspective. Thank you. Goodbye.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine Today. Join us now.